Hi lovelies and welcome in my holiday kitchen. Today we are preparing for Yule and a wonderful and festive celebration. And of course that means great food and some fun pagan traditions served with it. And in today's video you will get both folklore and history of the Yule log and my specially created recipe for an extravagant Yule log made of a light chocolate sponge cake and glühweininfused rosehip jam, filled with a creamy Italian hazelnut cream, covered in dark chocolate, and well, it's a Yule log, so of course we are going to cover it in candied fruit and marshmallow fluff, douse it with cognac and light it on fire. Now, as always, ingredients can be found in the description box below. And yes, this recipe for a flambeed Yule log is a bit more complicated than my other ones, but I challenge you, especially the ones that keep commenting that they are no bakers, to make this. As long as you follow the steps described, there is nothing that can go wrong and you will create a holiday masterpiece. Yes, I'm talking to you, personally. But let's start with the sponge cake. First we want to separate the eggs. This is so that we can really beat the egg whites stiff to make it fluffy and bring lots of volume in. Don't worry if you accidentally drop egg yolks into the white. It still works, but you will need to beat the mixture around triple the time to get it fluffy. Now we add a pinch of salt to the egg whites and then beat it, best with a kitchen machine or a handheld mixer. Unless of course you want to start early on your post-holiday New Year's workout regime, then you can use a hand whisk. And we want to whisk it until the egg whites are completely stiff. You will know if it is stiff enough if you can flip the bowl around over your head and keep your hair dry. Now we set this aside and add sugar and water to the egg yolks. If you'd like to make a chocolate sponge cake like I did, you also want to add unsweetened cacao powder. If you prefer a plain white sponge cake, just leave it out. And now we want to go ahead and whisk that too for a good 5 minutes until it's a bit creamier. Now we add in flour and baking powder and mix that in as well. Make sure that it doesn't dust to the sides of the bowl, but scrape it all together so you get a nice homogeneous mixture without any lumps in it. Like that you get a wonderful fluffy sponge cake. Doesn't that look absolutely wonderful? Every time I see a creamy chocolate batter, I imagine myself as the heroine in Chocolat, living in a quaint French village with my own chocolaterie, having a very much X-rated affair with a wild Roman rascal. But enough about my private cooking fantasies. It is now time to very carefully mix the stiff egg whites into the chocolatey cream. You want to do that with a spoon or a spatula and only carefully combine the two without mixing too long to keep the air and lightness in the dough. By the way, the tradition of burning a Yule log dates back to pre-Christian times and probably derived from Germanic paganism. It is said that it was a vital part of the Yuletide and that a log of an oak or ash tree lit in the half fire on midwinter to welcome the return of the sun and light. The following 12 days it would be burned bit by bit and the ashes sprinkled onto the land, people and into the food for the animals to bring fertility and growth and protection in the coming year. Now we want to cover a baking tray with parchment paper and then spoon a batter onto it. Spread it out evenly over the entire surface so you have a rectangle-shaped flat cake. Then we want to put this in the oven at around 180 degrees Celsius for around 15 minutes. Make sure to take it out before it browns too much or dries out. If you are quote-unquote not a baker, when it looks like a cake, take it out, it is done. Now we want to spread out a kitchen towel on which we then can carefully place the baked sponge cake straight out of the oven. Be careful not to burn your pretty paws. A little trick in order to remove the parchment paper from the dough without it ripping is to take a cloth and soak it in cold water. Then rub over the paper with it and just like that you can easily pull it off without ripping all your efforts apart. Now we leave this to cool down. either overnight or outside on the balcony or windowsill, so we can fill it later on without the filling melting and getting runny. And part 1 out of 4 is done. Now for an easy one, the glühwein or mulled wine infused jam. If you don't have bottled glühwein available, you can pour a bit of red wine in a pot and add the typical warming spices like cinnamon, star anise and ground cloves. If you don't know what glühwein is, you should, so go and check out the video linked in the card above. Then let it infuse for a bit when using whole spices, or just stir it in when using ground up stuff. We then add a jam. Personally, I absolutely love rosehip jam in this, but other great options would be sour cherry or raspberry. We want to let this simmer for a while so it reduces to a spreadable, delicious mixture of wine and sugared berries. Nowadays, very few people still burn an actual Yule log, but over time, people have reverted from this tradition to making festive Yule log table decorations with candles in it, or cakes like these. The edible version is actually a French tradition and has spread to Belgium, Switzerland, Canada, Lebanon, Syria and several former French colonies such as Vietnam, as well as the United Kingdom and Spain. Now we want to take our wine-infused jam and spread it onto the completely cooled down sponge cake. And just like this, part 2 of 4 is done! Hey, we are making progress here! Now we want to craft our delicious, light and creamy filling. An Italian hazelnut cream with mascarpone. For this dangerously delicious concoction, we want to whip some cream. Again, trusted hand mixer is your best friend here if you're already exhausted from doing step 1 and step 2. In order to keep the cream stiff, it is advisable to add some whipping cream stiffener. Then we want to add a spoonful of powdered sugar and whip it all until the cream stiffens. Set the whipped cream aside for a minute. And we want to mix the mascarpone with some cream cheese. Then we add in ground nuts. I do very much enjoy this cream with hazelnuts, but you can basically choose whatever nut you please. To get a richer, sweeter flavor in and a pile on those holiday calories that we can feel guilty about just before New Year's Eve, we now add hazelnut spread. If you want to pretend to be healthy, you could choose an unsweetened natural nut butter. If you want to go full on out and are in no denial of your culinary sins, go ahead and add the sugary full-fat everything stuff. And for good measure, pour some more powdered sugar over it. However, I went light on the sugar in this recipe because I do enjoy creams to not be sickeningly sweet and have a more delicate and light flavor. And now you can take your mixer again to combine it into a creamy mixture. I had to take a fork because the stir bars mysteriously disappeared in the process and were found later in the doggy bed. Traces on upholstered chairs and carpets pointing towards the baby as the perpetrator. Possibly with the dog being a helper to this mystery crime. Now we want to take the whipped cream and carefully fold it into the mascarpone nut mix, keeping it airy and fluffy. And our cream is done! By the way, this doesn't only taste great on a Yule log, it is also amaze balls in a little fancy glass jar, served over some crumbled biscotto soaked in amaretto as a fancy schmancy but easy dessert. Now, the only thing there is left to do is to spread the cream onto the sponge base, making sure it is evenly distributed. And then we roll it up, giving it its log-like shape. You want to make sure that the part where it opens lays on the bottom so it doesn't open up. Best place it onto the plate you want to serve it on later. If you're tired from all that baking, you could technically leave it like that because it will taste awesome. But if you're a perfectionist and want to make it into the festive flambeed Yule log that I have promised, we need to complete one more step. The chocolate ganache. And here we are going for something super simple and extremely delicious. Our dark chocolate cream that is not too sweet and heavy. For that we just break up some dark chocolate, preferably of good quality because you can really tell in this, into small pieces and then pour the heavy whipping cream on top. This can now go in the microwave for a bit until it is melting. If you don't have a microwave, heat it in a hot water bath. Once it is all liquid, pour it into a big container and mix it. Don't forget to clean the mixer if any small creatures in your household have licked it. You want to make sure to beat the cream for quite some time until it starts to thicken a bit and get more creamy. I would say somewhere between 5 to 7 minutes would be ideal. If you're doing this by hand, it would depend on your fitness level, but somewhere in the 20-minute zone seems about right. Don't forget to tag me on Instagram using the hashtag #WitchesKitchenWorkout. The mixture will likely cool down while mixing, but just be sure that it is not warm anymore when you apply it onto the Yule log. This can best be done with a spatula or knife. Just slather on this awesome dark chocolate spread. If you would like to give it the look of an actual tree log, just take a fork and carve some lines into it so it looks like bark. Now you already have a very respectable Yule log that will definitely please your palate, so if you want to call it a day, just dust some powdered sugar on top and pretend it is freshly fallen snow. But if you want to learn more about the only written proof of the Yule log being a pagan tradition, and also want to know how to burn this on your table instead of using an actual tree, keep on watching. Now we want to slice some fruit. A written document back from 580 states that the Bishop Martin of Baccarat actually prohibited the pagan tradition of burning wine and fruit over a log during winter times. People obviously didn't listen and kept to their beliefs, as in 753 Bishop Pirim had to renew this law. And as he wasn't successful either, that tradition slowly got taken over into Christian beliefs, and from on the 12th century, the burning of the Yule log is mentioned for the first time as a Christian Yuletide tradition on a German document. So today we will also be burning fruit and alcohol over our Yule log. You will need to make sure you place the Yule log on a suitable surface and keep away from extractor hoods and low-hanging lamps. Now we need some of the good hooch, definitely something over 40 volume %, better 70 or 80, the fine line between fine spirit and cleaning product. Never pour out of the bottle when fire is involved, but take a little bit and drizzle it over the fruit, and marshmallow or marshmallow fluff if you added any. Now take long matches and light the log on fire, wishing for a prosperous new year. Instead of sprinkling the ashes over your family members, you can now feed your loved ones with this wonderful Yule dessert. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I want to receive all your photos over on Instagram of you baking this, especially the ones that think there are no great bakers. I have your names written down. This is my end of the year exam for all subscribers of the Witches Cookery, just that you know. Don't forget to check out the hashtag 21 days till Yule for more Yule and Christmas joys, and I see you tomorrow. Have a great evening and see you soon. You want to make sure to beat the cream for quite Don't beat the queen. Okay, again. Oh, I'm tired. Come on, be serious. Okay.